Welcome back to Snackcast.
Yeah, this is a great chapter we're on, man.
Woo, this is a big one. So if you're just now joining us, it's book review, The Great Cholesterol Myth.
Chapter 6, episode 5 for us, right? Or episode 7? Which way are we going?
No, I think 5. We're one we skipped chapter 1 because it was kind of just a big intro. Right.
So, yeah, this one is all about sugar,
well, that's the title, right?
Insulin's resistance.
The title of this chapter is Sugar, the Real Demon in the Diet. They didn't beat around the bush.
No, they didn't.
So kick it off, man.
It kind of, the book kind of goes down this path of, all right, helping you identify what is insulin, what is glucogen, and how then it translates into metabolic health or lack thereof, and how it translates to heart disease. So the first thing that we'll go over is what is insulin, and they basically call insulin is a hormone, and it's responsible basically from not allowing the blood sugar to go too high.
Yeah, we have. So, right, I've got a diabetic kid, so this is kind of old news as far as insulin and glucagon goes. So, for clarity, right, so glucagon, most people probably haven't heard about that, right?
Right.
My kid actually carries a glucagon shot.
And that prevents it from going too low?
Correct. And the interesting thing is you can't take an oral or an intravenous of glucagon. You have to inject it into the muscle of your thigh. Not sure why, but to Kevin's point, your blood sugar wants to be about 80 to 100. And I think that's so whatever it is. It's something to liters, right? And so the insulin, when you eat some sugar or carbohydrates, whatever, and your blood sugar starts to go up, the insulin is what brings it back down. If it goes too low, the glucagon kicks it back up. Right? So that's the basic relationship.
Right, and they use the analogy that insulin is responsible for saving and glucagon is responsible for spending, right? If you were thinking of it in a budgetary perspective. What's interesting to me about this is that glucagon could be created from the body, right? You look at adrenaline can do it, HGH can do it, cortisol. It can all help if you go too low. So it seems to me the body has a bias of going, hey, too low is okay. If you don't eat enough sugar, too low is okay. We'll take care of the rest, right? If you're not diabetic, if you don't have some pre-existing conditions. Too high, on the other hand, hey, we'll send out the insulin. We'll take care of it out that way. And the book holds no punches. It flat out says that basically insulin is responsible for taking out toxic sugar, the glucose, right? So that's what insulin does. It helps pull the glucose out of the blood and deposit it in the places where it needs to go. Right. I watched a video earlier in how much sugar should you have? Did you watch it?
Yeah, I did.
And it showed a video of a gallon and a half of blood, fake blood, and he goes on to say how much sugar do you really need, and he takes 1 teaspoon and he dumps it in
for that amount of blood, right?
For that amount of blood per day. And then he said, what does a typical American do? And he starts throwing in, I think it was 30 something. Yeah.
They kind of did the hyper speed.
So to get an analogy of that, and again, you get sugar from everywhere. You get it from carbs, you get it from pastas, wheats, all of these different things are going to spike your blood sugar. And so a lot of people go, I don't eat that much sugar. Well, I guess you're meeting with someone later on
today.
You're going to talk to them about their diet.
Her comment was that I eat pretty healthy, and
right.
I calculated her sugar intake.
I the funny thing is, I look at that and I go, that's the equivalent. Scott, are you a good driver? You ever heard that analogy? And you go, I'm a really good driver, right? Everybody else sucks. Everybody else sucks. And I think that this is in the same ballpark as, hey, do you really eat bad? How many people out there are going to say, yeah, I eat bad. I'm a horrible eater, right? And it's just not going to happen. So why is sugar so bad for you? Why is it get, number one, why does it, we'll talk about how it switched and really is the black sheep of the family versus fat after this, but why is sugar so bad?
Are you asking me, or are you asking me to tee you up?
Either one. Either one, whatever you like.
So, I mean, sugar has a whole host of problems that it causes the body, right? I think at the very basic layman terms level is it causes inflammation, which the last chapter we know that inflammation, especially in the blood and related to the cholesterol, causes LDL to go from pattern A to pattern B, which is hard and small, which therefore leads to blockages and plaque buildup, et cetera, et cetera.
I really loved the point about the blood pressure, which I really didn't quite understand. Did you catch that point? That insulin narrows the artery walls, requiring more pumping of the blood vessels, right? Which causes high blood pressure. Insulin also tells the kidneys to hold on to salt, and thus salt tells the body, retain more water.
Retain more water, right.
More water in the blood.
Bloats the blood. Stresses the arteries.
Creates high blood pressure once again. And these are all responses to the body not being able to deal with too much sugar.
Right.
So then they went on to talk about what are triglycerides. I thought that was interesting as well, right? And triglycerides are really just excess carbs that are being dealt with in the body, right? And from the previous one where they used the boats,
right?
You just the body's going, all right, I got a bad substance here, I got to do something with it, and it takes those carbs, it drops it into triglycerides, and triglycerides turns into fat.
Right. So, and we talked about the triglyceride to HDL ratio, right? And in the prior chapter, it talks about how that's a leading indicator to potential heart problems, right? That you want that ratio 3.0 or lower, lower being ideal. But that same ratio is also one of the number one indicators to insulin resistance.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, and this isn't fat shaming, this isn't anything else. This is all about health. He makes the joke in there that if you walk up to a wall and your belly touches before any other part of your body, you are probably insulin resistant.
In men, there's a term for that.
Belly do?
Well, I was going to say the other one.
So that's funny, right? So we're starting to see a pattern here. All right, so sugar causes more triglycerides. Triglycerides is equivalent to boats in the water, right? And reducing the amount of carbs in sugar absolutely reduces total cholesterol.
Correct. In fact,
so that's where everybody's like, lower your cholesterol. Well, lowering your cholesterol is good if you do it through natural ways. And it's not even good or bad. It's just a boat lowering, right? But
did you
a result of.
Catch the part that insulin triggers the cholesterol manufacturing components in the body?
Yes.
And so the hormone, or enzyme, I guess they call it, is HMG-CoA, reductase, whatever that is. But what insulin causes to grow is the exact thing that statins target to lower. Right? So
So moving my notes along here. Reducing sugar and processed carbs will lower your overall cholesterol. But yeah, insulin is insulin as a whole is anti-inflammatory.
Right.
Until you have taken on so much sugar that your body can't deal with it, and there's an overabundance of insulin, and it goes into fats, it goes into
I think I
your
highlighted
cells,
that.
and basically what I almost want to use the analogy, what God promised for good, you cause to do bad. Right? Insulin's a good thing until you have to have too much of it. Right, it's a protector. Insulin's great. It goes out and protects it helps pull the sugar out.
But we were never meant to have as much insulin generation in our body as the current modern Western diet requires.
Hence, as I said before, 1 teaspoon versus the 30 some odd that people put in. You're like, like you said, we weren't ever meant to do that. So insulin resistance is when your body is tapping out. It's saying, I can't deal with all of this insulin that we're putting in our body, and your muscles reject it, your cells reject it, your fat and your liver no longer respond well to insulin. Your body is tapping out, and now that is a really bad thing. We've talked about triglycerides being bad. We've talked about the HDL to triglyceride ratio. When you hit insulin resistance, prepare. You are on a downhill spiral, and you better check yourself.
And you can fix it, but if you don't, it's downward.
And that's where I said, if your stomach is hitting the wall before you do, you are likely in an insulin-resistant state.
Yeah.
Right? So I guess really the overall theme of this is that, LDL has gotten the bad rap. LDL gets damaged by the glycogen. I guess that was it, which is too much sugar in the blood.
Yeah.
Right? So they come back and they go, LDL's bad, LDL's bad. Well, LDL's only bad when it's been damaged.
And if I can say for the record, especially if you're a new viewer, sugar is synonymous with carbohydrate. If you think that sugar is, well, I'm not drinking Coke. No, it's you have to check labels and look at how many carbohydrates are in your food.
Right. And later in the chapter, they talk about, and there's a very long chapter, they talk about sucrose versus fructose. Sucrose is really the table sugar that's the unrefined. It's the more in its natural state. And high fructose corn syrup, high fructose, that, I don't know if they actually use the example of drugs, where, methamphetamine versus cocaine. I mean, you'll pick your poison here. But sucrose is more natural and is dealt with in the bloodstream, where fructose is dealt with in the liver.
Right.
Your body can't do anything with it. It goes liver. You got to take this thing out.
Ever heard the phrase fatty liver?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fatty liver is another indication of heart disease as well.
All kinds of stuff.
Right. So the LDL, your LDL, which has gotten a bad rap, and I think that's where this whole fat versus sugar argument is really coming from. They look at science and they go, LDL is the cause of all these problems. LDL is not the cause of the problems till LDL gets damaged by sugar.
Right. Right.
And your artery walls are damaged by sugar.
So
and
I feel
the stickiness of your blood is damaged by sugar.
Well, see, so that's, you mentioned the stickiness of the blood, and glycation is something I want to talk about with more than just a few seconds left. We're running kind of long. Do you want to do
we can go.
You want to do a part D
we can,
on chapter 6?
We could do that. Glycation is a really important aspect, and I think it deserves its due.
Right. I agree.
Let me see if there's anything else I got to wrap up on. We can talk about glycation. We can talk about how, because they go into low-calorie diet versus sugar diet. I think that those are great.
Yeah.
And how we got here from like lobbying and everything else.
And for the record,
how fat got the bad rap and sugar got the good rap.
Right. Every chapter in this book is like 10-ish pages, except for this one.
Yeah, this one was a bunch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I think it's difficult to cover in one snack cast. We probably should break it up.
I thought they should have broken down the chapter as well. I thought you should have gone, all right, what is insulin? And then the next chapter gone into the lobby and why it's so bad and you know, why are we fighting this uphill battle?
Yeah, I mean, the title of the chapter is Sugar, and we're spending most of the time on insulin.
Right.
Which they're correlated. I get it, but I think you're right. Maybe breaking this chapter up a little would have been beneficial.
There's just a couple other stats. Insulin resistance in the world has absolutely skyrocketed. I think it was
61%.
61%. In the last, I don't know, however many years.
I think it was a decade.
And here's the other thing, and we'll go into this more tomorrow on some of the bad actors in the sugar space, is that they've known this data. Sheer back to 1960, 1965. There was massive studies that were done on sugar and insulin.
Oh, man, you can't beat the lobbies.
Let's bury that stuff.
Yep.
All right.
All right, so we'll come back at you. Well, today is Friday. For us, I don't know when this will deploy.
2 Fridays from now.
So, but we'll come back at you on Monday with part 2 of Chapter 6, Sugar, the Real Demon.
Yep, sounds good.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Email him.
Hit us at Jerry. Hit us at snackcast@yes.fit.
Stay moving.
See ya.